The Trenton War Memorial Building. Inside, the curtain will rise and New Jersey will have a new governor.
Christine Whitman is about to be sworn in as the 50th governor of the state of New Jersey and the first woman to hold that high office. Hello, I'm Steve Highsmith.
And I'm Kent Manahan with NJN's live coverage of the inauguration of Christine Whitman.
And we're going to be following Governor-elect Whitman and Governor Florio as they take their ceremonial trip, but it'll be by car, not walking this time from the State House because of the bad weather out there and the icy roads to the War Memorial for the swearing-in festivities in just a few minutes.
And
a little preview.
That's right. Well, the weather wreaking havoc all over the state. We're joined this morning. They made it here for a little perspective by Howard Green of the New Jersey Historical Commission and by two gentlemen that we've seen and have seen a few governors in their time, Jim McQueenie and Roger Bodman. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming and welcome to you. We're going to join in the conversation with you. But as we set the scene this morning, Steve, I think we could say that Christine Todd Whitman has been gearing herself to this post throughout a long period of her life, since the age of 10, she says, when in 1956 she accompanied by her parents to the Republican National Convention and presented Dwight Eisenhower with a cover that she had personally made for a golf tee. And he held it aloft before everyone gathered at the convention, and she got a taste of the excitement of politics, she said. And of course, she is the daughter of Webster and Eleanor Todd. Webster,
long-time GOP.
That's right.
All right. Well, you know, it is, you're right, Ken, a personal triumph today, but it's also a political triumph. It's also a democratic triumph with a small d, I guess you could say. And what we're going to be doing throughout the day today, and particularly in the next hour and a half to 2 hours, is try to give some sort of perspective of the three things we mentioned, the personal, the political, and the democratic process that's going on here. And there's no doubt going to be a good bit of comparison to that of 4 years ago, since it is such a change and a rare thing to happen that an incumbent governor will have not been reelected and a new one is coming in. Whether or not we achieve it saying anything insightful, of course, might be by luck, but we're going to endeavor to do so.
Of course, the theme of this campaign and of the inauguration, New Jersey, one family. And I'm told inside the campaign that she is referred to as Governor Mom, and even her own children, who will be here today for the inauguration, flew in last evening from Deerfield Academy, I understand, refer to their mom as Governor Mom. And Mrs. Whitman has written them a letter about just what this post entails and what it will entail in their lives as well. Well, gentlemen, as we join in the conversation this morning, Howard, to begin with you, certainly an historic day in New Jersey, a first woman governor in the state. As we look back over the governorships, certainly we can say that the weather has wreaked havoc here, but that's not an unknown factor in swearing-ins of governors past.
No, in fact, in the first story it brings to mind is that in, I believe it was 1857, a governor named William Newell was forced to walk from Allentown to
Not
Trenton.
very far, though.
No, 12, 15 miles, but it took a while.
2 days, I understand.
And his whereabouts were, during there not being communication systems like ours, his whereabouts were unknown during that walk.
Well, he probably got there quicker than the people who went by car today from North Jersey.
We don't know yet how long they took. But what's interesting about Newell, I think you can say the legislature was probably glad when he got there, because he believed strongly that a governor should follow, not lead the legislature, and really didn't bring much of a program with him, let the legislature do that. There may have been some other people less happy about Newell's arrival. He was a candidate of the New American Party, I believe it was called, the Nativists, and was somewhat hostile to the new immigrants who had been coming into the state and were beginning to be a part of the electorate.
New Jersey's governorship said to be one of, if not the most powerful in the country because of the number of appointments that are made, prosecutors and judges and commissions and so forth. Mm-hmm. And we heard Harold talk about the legislature and back 100 or more years ago taking the lead. Will we see Mrs. Whitman in this powerful governorship take the lead right off the bat? Do you think, Roger?
Well, I think absolutely. I think you'll see in her inaugural address where many inaugural speeches, Kent, are in fact sort of lofty and broad in terms of scope and theme. This one is quite specific in terms of her program, her plans, her promises, her commitment to the people of New Jersey to keep her promises. And you're absolutely right about the New Jersey governorship. We don't have a lieutenant governor in New Jersey, for example. The Senate president is in effect the lieutenant governor in New Jersey.
But that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On the one hand,
Yes, you can get a lot of things done that many other governors in other states might have difficulty doing, especially with the speed with which you can do it. But as Jim Florio found out, if you do the things that the people don't like, it'll work against you.
I don't think Mrs. Whitman, you're absolutely right, Steve, let me agree, but in the case of Governor Florio, but with regard to Mrs. Whitman, I think you'll again see in this speech today, and certainly how she's conducted herself during the course of this transition, the word listen is used heavily in the speech, and it's obviously something that Mrs. Whitman very much believes in, and she'll reach out to those people, and I don't believe she's going to have any problem communicating with New Jerseyans.
I think it's interesting in the copy of the speech that we've been given here before, as Roger said, it was extremely specific. And as someone who's written some of these kinds of speeches before, it is notably without what we used to call, when we were writing these things, weasel words. Weasel words are those things that say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it follows with a little phrase, if events allow, in the most foreseeable time, as soon as feasibly can.
I assume that's a compliment, James, is that right?
It is a compliment
right,
for a
good.
speech like this. On the other hand, it's I'd have to say, Raj, not to spoil the party, it's an extremely definitive statement of purpose, which, again, as Steve mentioned, when you make things that specific this early, you're going to be held to it politically.
She is setting a standard for herself that is clearly a high standard, no doubt.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we are going to take our first peek inside the War Memorial Building where Larry Stupnagel is standing by. As we said, the inaugural parade canceled this morning. The historic walk canceled in effect because Mrs. Whitman and her entourage driven to the War Memorial from the State House area this morning. Larry Stupnagel standing by inside the War Memorial to begin our coverage there. Larry?
Thank you, Kent. Well, we are live here at the War Memorial, and as you were talking about the inaugural parade being canceled, I think people are just having problems getting across some of the parking lots to get in here to the War Memorial for Christine Whitman's inaugural event today. If we take a look down on the floor, you'll see a scattering of people who are just now starting to arrive. I did notice earlier today that current Congressman Jim Saxton, he has arrived, and I'm sure he'll be part of the Republican delegation here, the state's Republican congressional delegation. Also here today is Jim Corder, the man who lost to Jim Florio 4 years ago. I'm sure he has a very different feeling being here today. But right now I get the sense that people are having trouble getting to the inaugural and getting in. But things will be ready to roll, we are told, right at 12 o'clock. So far I haven't heard of any delays in the events. And this is my third inaugural that I have covered here while working for NJN. I started with Tom Kane, Jim Florio, and now Christine Whitman, and I can't ever remember an inaugural in recent times, or at least in my time anyway, where the weather has been more uncooperative than it has been for this one. Kent?
All right, Larry, thank you. And we continue our coverage here at our NJN studios, where we'll be following today's inaugural events as they proceed. We are joined by Jim McQueenie, Roger Bodman, and Howard Green of the New Jersey Historical Commission.
Let's talk a little bit about comparisons on this day as we move along into it early on. 4 years ago, it was a sunny day, like today, but it was much warmer. And Jim Florio and Lucinda walked down the State House steps and were able to go along. There were a good number of people out there.
The rest of his term wasn't so sunny and warm.
It went downhill pretty quickly after that. But let's deal with the first day and maybe the first few days after that. But one of the other things I noticed, first of all, there was the inaugural parade that happened last time, which hadn't happened for the most part. Most historians will say for 55 to 58 years, somewhere in that range, about 1932, I believe. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I found interesting about it was in his speech, he had a line in there, if you recall, in the advanced text that we all got, that he didn't use. And it's one in which, to paraphrase him, he said, I'm going to keep my promises. And in hindsight, that looks so fascinating when you think that it was that one promise, that it doesn't look like we're going to have to raise taxes, that actually got him in trouble. And one wonders if the things you learn in transition leading up to this day somehow tempers what you're going to do and say. And do you expect that Christine Whitman has learned anything since the election that in any degree is going to temper what she says today?
I think one of the things that she's probably learned is, and Roger used the word, it's throughout the speech, the word listen. I think that that's something that was learned from Jim Florio, rightly or wrongly in his execution, that Florio just went at it to solve it and didn't listen to people.
Jim, I don't think, I mean, not to interrupt, but the issue really is this, and the fact, it's not the question of making promises or deleting statements like that from your speech. She's out there on the record having said a lot of things, and she has to follow it up.
We want to switch now to the State House area, where a lot of the dignitaries are beginning the process of moving from the State House to the War Memorial, where the ceremonies are scheduled to begin around noon today. And I believe in a moment, here we are, we have a shot. There's Senator Dick LaRosa and others who are getting ready to get on board a bus, probably more than one bus, maybe just one, I can't tell. And they'll be heading that short trip, but a dangerous trek on this day, and the reason the parade was canceled because of the ice there. You know, it's bad enough when you're in a marching band to have to follow the horses, but it's really bad out there when you've got to be dodging ice chips and everything else that's going on. Now, I must say, the roads are fairly good around the War Memorial and State House, but nonetheless, safety is the first concern. And yes, indeed, there are more than one
around
bus.
the War Memorial, but trekking down from North Jersey, as I did this morning, that is not indicative of the roads around the state in a great part of the northern
You
areas.
don't want on the first day of your administration to run into a Lindsay-like, Lindsay-like problem of having snowdrifts outside the State House and you can't get it plowed.
You know, we must say, too, Rudolph Giuliani, the new mayor of New York, had to cancel his appearance. He was scheduled to come down and attend Governor-elect Whitman's inaugural, but he had to cancel at the last minute, and as a result has some news conference scheduled around 2:30 today, but he had to skip it.
As we come back to Howard Green and talk to you about this first woman governor of New Jersey, no one for Mrs. Whitman to look back to in terms of this high an office. No other woman governor of this state, but certainly a number of women of historical note who have made a great contribution to our state's history that she can draw from and experience.
No question. I think the first thing I want to say is that on some levels it doesn't matter that there's another woman, that there hasn't been another woman. I think she sees it that way, though I certainly can't speak for her. She will look at the record of past governors and she will make her own choices. As the father of a teenage girl, I think it's an important moment, and I am looking forward to being able to say, you know,
I have to interrupt
sure.
you, unfortunately, on that note, but I've heard that comment made by many people since Mrs. Whitman has won this election in New Jersey. We are going to turn our attention now to Michael Aaron, who is standing by outside the War Memorial with the people as they file inside for today's inaugural ceremonies. Michael?
Ken, we're here outside the War Memorial, as you say. It's a little cold. People are filing in. I'm with someone who ran for governor once. How many years ago would that have been? 17 years? 16
years ago.
This is Ray Bateman, former Senate president, the Republican candidate for governor in 1977. Lost to Brendan Byrne that year, but is very close to Christie Whitman and has been a Whitman supporter for quite a while. How do you feel today, Ray Bateman?
Cold but terrific. This is a great day.
What do you think the Whitman administration is going to be like? I know it's a little early to start characterizing something that begins today, but what do you look forward to out of Christie Whitman's governorship?
Well, as you said, Mike, I've known her since she was a kid, and Christie is going to be just a tonic for New Jersey, a good tonic. She's outgoing. People relate to her. She's positive. She's upbeat. I think she's going to hit the state at the right time because I suspect the economy is coming back. I think she's going to be just marvelous for New Jersey. I think we'll find that when it's all over, we'll look back at a great moment in the state's history.
How has the transition gone from your point of view?
Well, transitions, I always wish that transitions were one day because, they drag out terribly. But I think she's getting some fine people, which is the big thing. She has a diverse cabinet so far, and the people I see in the cabinet I'm very comfortable with.
You were telling me a little while ago when I said Senate President that you're also the father of an assemblyman. Your son was just elected to the State Assembly?
Yeah, I was here last week watching my son. He was the only Republican sworn in, and that's a big moment for me because he's a great kid. And
he's the only new Republican in the Assembly?
Yeah, that's right. I think there are 11 new Democrats and 1 new Republican.
And his name is Kip Bateman.
He's Christopher Kip, yeah.
Maybe he'll run for governor someday?
Oh, no, I don't think so. But, he's been a freeholder, he's been a mayor, and he's only 35, 36 years old. And he loves it.
All right, carrying on the family tradition. We see a bus out here that says Whitman, Governor. Thank you. Oh, here is Senator Bateman's son. Assemblyman, you want to say a quick hello? Welcome to Trenton.
Thank you very much.
You're a legislator now.
Yeah, very excited to be part of today's festivities with Christy. I think it's going to be a great day.
What do you look forward to in the Whitman governorship?
Well, hopefully changing the economy around and getting through her tax cut. And we have a lot of difficult challenges ahead, but with her at the top, I think we're going to be able to accomplish them. So I'm excited.
All right. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck.
You're cold out here.
It's a little chilly out here. It's very icy. I don't know if you've been able to see out here, but people are walking up the steps to the War Memorial very gingerly. There are workmen throwing ice around here. I was telling you about the Whitman bus outside. I saw Christy Whitman's sister, Kate Beach, come up out of this bus. I don't know if Governor-elect Whitman, still to be called Governor-elect Whitman for another 45 minutes, was with her, but we'll see her soon enough, I'm sure. This is Michael Aaron outside the War Memorial. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Michael. Looks like things are falling into place. This will be a long day for the Governor-elect Governor Whitman. She began this morning around 9:30, 10 o'clock here in Trenton at a traditional church service that happens every 4 years. This one happened today at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. That's on West State Street in Trenton. A number of people were involved in this, and as you can see, despite the weather, it was quite crowded. But it was a very ecumenical service. The Right Reverend G.P. Melech Belshaw, the Episcopal Bishop of New Jersey, is scheduled to have been there. Barry R. Friedman, Temple B'nai Abraham in Livingston. In addition to that, Dr. Muhammad Ali Chaudhry is president of the American Islamic Academy in Boonton. Reverend David Miles, pastor of the Lamington Baptist Church in Bedminster. Reverend J. Chester Gray, for example, dean of the Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, and also another note, the Reverend Reginald Jackson, St. Matthew AME Church in Orange. And one of the interesting things about the Reverend Jackson is that he's one of those who was involved in the lawsuit following the whole affair with Ed Rollins, being very angry about that and the impact that he says it had on black ministers in the state of New Jersey. Very ecumenical service today, starting things off for the governor-elect. Ken?
The affair that you mentioned concerning Ed Rollins was somewhat put to rest just last week, as a matter of fact, when federal and state prosecutors called off their investigation because of lack of evidence in the case. Will this continue, do you think, to be discussed and to haunt Mrs. Whitman in any way in the early days of this administration?
I don't think so, Ken. I think the matter is very much behind her and behind us as a people of the state. The fact of the matter is nothing happened. There was never 1 ounce of credible evidence to suggest anything did. That's clearly what the prosecutors, both Michael Chertoff, the U.S. Attorney, and the former Attorney Generals that are asked to look into this matter. It's over. It's done. It's history.
Not in that sense necessarily, but in the sense that in her mind she realizes that maybe some people in New Jersey feel that she has something to prove, and perhaps you can argue that every governor has something to prove once they get in. Are you going to see anything in the speech that reaches out?
And today's editorial in the Star-Ledger is still talking about the Ed Rollins affair.
I think the fact of the matter is that with every black cloud there's a silver lining. For Christy Whitman, the silver lining here is that she's had the opportunity to reach out to the African American community of the state, become closer with them, understand them. Obviously, it was an unfortunate and horrible circumstance that led to that, what I believe to be positive circumstance, and that is a better relationship with the African American community.
I think you'll actually see here an opportunity. We saw Senate President DeFrancesco the other day giving a speech that I said sounded very much like a Democratic speech, talking to these constituencies that Democrats usually talk to, specifically the education agenda. And in Christie's speech today, she talks extensively about reforming education, and a lot of that has to be done in the urban areas. And I think if there might be some limerence, if you will, to the Rollins issue, it might be a political need to really address some of these urban issues with maybe a 2% thing of some political concern. But as we said from the beginning, or we were saying during our commentary during the election very early, we didn't believe the Rollins thing. But now here's a chance where, and I think the speech does reflect that, she will have to go to some of these urban-oriented kind of things like education.
All right. Well, as we continue NJN's coverage of the election of Christy Whitman, New Jersey's 50th governor, New Jersey's first governor, we're going to take a short break. But before we go, here's our first look back back at some of the more interesting governors of New Jersey, as produced for us by Maureen Duffy.
Governor Whitman is the first woman to govern the state, but not the first to wear a dress. Meet Edward Hyde, cousin of Queen Anne of England. The Queen's governing style affected Hyde down to his style of dress. Spending beyond his means, Hyde was kicked out of office and thrown into jail. After paying his debt with his inheritance, he went back to England. Edward Hyde governed from 1703 to 1708. William Franklin was the last royal governor of New Jersey. The illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin, he developed a solid reputation as chief executive and enjoyed great popularity until the outbreak of the Revolution. Unable to break his ties from the crown, Franklin was removed from his post but continued being a loyalist. He sailed back to England, never to reconcile a father-son relationship severed by war. William Franklin governed from 1763 to 1776.
And welcome back. You're looking at the State House of New Jersey, the Capitol building. And this is NJN's live coverage of Inauguration 94, the swearing in of Christine Todd Whitman as the 50th governor of the state of New Jersey. That's seen from the War Memorial Building, where the ceremony will take place at noon today. She will become the first woman to be governor of New Jersey. I'm Steve Highsmith, along with Kent Manahan and Howard Green of the New Jersey Historical Commission. And also, of course, Jim McQueenie and Roger Bodman with us. Michael Laren and Larry Stoopnagle are also standing by, out and about at the State House and the War Memorial today, catching people. Let's check in now with Larry Stoopnagle, who has at the War Memorial Carl Golden. Larry?
Right now joining me is a man who had a lot to do with Christy Whitman being here today. Carl Golden was her press secretary, saw her through thick and thin throughout this campaign. And Carl, how are you feeling today?
Well, I'm glad it's over, Larry. I'm glad it's over in another few hours. But I feel really good. I think that it was nice being a part of history, and we'll continue to be a part of it, first woman governor and all of the rest. And I really I wish the weather were a little better, but aside from that, I feel really good about it.
How does this compare? You were also Tom Kaine's press secretary. Can you compare the two, the feelings that you have?
Well, it was really funny because with Kaine, we didn't know for a whole month who won the election. So everything was a lot more frantic and pulled together at the last minute and all of that sort of thing. But the same sense of excitement was there, the same sense of a new administration coming in, a new governor coming in, coming off the closest election in the history of the state. The same sense of excitement is there now. We're coming off the second closest election in the history of the state. So I was a part of both of those. I don't know if that's good or bad, but or if any Republican candidate will ever hire me again after these two. But there's the same sense of excitement in the air. I suspect it was here in 1990 when Governor Florio was elected. There's a certain electricity about this whole thing, and it's really nice to be a part of it again.
Now, we won't break the embargo on her inaugural speech, but one of the things that has struck a lot of people who have been looking this is how specific she is in talking about certain goals that she has. It is not a general thank you for electing me sort of speech. Is this a preview of things to come?
Well, she wanted to use this first really major speech when presumably the whole state's watching, hopefully on your station, to lay out some specifics, but to lay out a vision as well. And blend the two, and that's what we've tried to do in this speech. So there will be some specific proposals. They won't be in great detail, obviously, but there'll be some specific proposals. But there will also be the general theme of reaching out to people, bringing people into the process, convincing people that government is really working for them and that they're going to be a part of it all. They may not agree with everything we like to do, but at least they'll know what we're going to do and the reason for it. You can see it now in the kinds of things she's doing with the call-in shows, with the town meeting that she'll be doing on New Jersey Network in another week or so. And she feels very, very strongly that the people of the state have kind of lost touch with their government, or maybe the government's lost touch with the people, I don't know. And she wants to restore that and bring more people in.
With one last question for you. You've been through this before. With any new governor, there's always a learning curve in terms of dealing with the bureaucracy, in terms of dealing with the legislature. You went through it with Tom Kaine. What's your advice to her?
My advice to her is hang in there for the first 6 months, because it's going to be tough until you do master that learning curve. It really is difficult. It doesn't look tough from the outside, but I've been there on the inside, and I'm here to tell you it can be very, very difficult. It's going to require a great deal of an ability to take frustration, because it can be very frustrating. But she's a very quick study. She knows what she wants to do. She knows how she wants to do it. So maybe the learning curve won't be 6 months. Hopefully it'll be 3 months or something.
All right, Carl Golden, thank you for joining us. I'll let you get back. I know some of my media colleagues want to talk to you about the event that's going on behind us here. That's the situation at the War Memorial for now. Let's throw it back to the studio.
Thank you, Larry. Carl Golden. He's back.
Carl's an interesting guy. I want to compliment on his suit. He's known for blue jeans and cowboy boots. He looks mighty spiffy today.
Carl dresses like he's coming over to fix your car.
He's a great guy, though. He really is.
Had a hand in fixing up this speech, though, today, I'm sure. There were numerous people who had a hand in today's inaugural address.
I'm sure, but one thing he probably fixed up pretty early and well in terms of credibility was the Whitman campaign. I think as one of the early hires, he was one of the best hires they made. In fact, we were talking about Rollins before. You could argue to some degree, I think, that a guy like Golden and his hire and his work was probably more effective overall and in the end than whatever Rollins did.
He brought a tremendous amount of credibility and seasoning to the campaign. He was, as you know, Governor Kane's press secretary for his 8 years, and in 1981, when I was campaign manager for Governor Kane, he was our press secretary that year as well. This guy's got a ton of experience, and he's real good at it.
Carl also said something I think is really going to be borne out. The first 6 months of any administration are just terrible, even if you come in under the best of terms. And here's a situation where it's not the best of terms. It's going to be a contentious fiscal environment. And a person like Carl, and he's experienced, he's been through it, you walk down that press row, the credibility you carry down there gives your boss, your patron.
I'm being told that Michael Aaron is standing by with the mayor of Jersey City. We don't want to keep Michael waiting. I wanted to ask Howard about whether or not press secretaries were in the colonial times for our early governors, but we'll get to that shortly. Meantime, let's join Michael Aaron, who is outside the War Memorial building with the mayor of Jersey City, Brett Schundler.
We appreciate you coming to us now, Kent, because the mayor of Jersey City and his wife, Lynn, are cold. He has no gloves on. We're just trying to figure out what the wind chill factor is here in a kind of wind tunnel. The wind is blowing in from the Delaware River right into this entrance to the War Memorial. This is Brett Schundler, the mayor of Jersey City, and his wife, Lynn. And Mayor, how do you feel about the Whitman inaugural?
Well, it's very exciting. I have to say it's a beautiful day, even though it's frozen. And I think that sunshine is symbolic of the next 4 years. I think it's going to be a very bright period for Jersey.
Let me talk to your wife, whom we have never seen on camera before, I don't think. And Mrs. Schundler, how are things in Jersey City with your husband as the mayor?
Oh, they're very hectic, but they're very exciting. I think that I couldn't ask, to be at a better place at a better time. I think Jersey City has a bright future, and it's just going to even be brighter with Christine in the office of governor.
Mayor, do you have any sense of when the school voucher program might begin in your city?
We're working now with the legislative leadership, and we've also been working with Leo Klagholz, the Commission of Education designate, on just figuring exactly how we want to introduce it. I think what we'll do as much administratively as we can, and then we'll do legislatively what remains and has to be done legislatively. My hope is that we could have something put together by the end of this spring and potentially implement it this fall already.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Schundler and Lynn Schundler. This is Michael Aaron. Back to the studio.
All right, Michael, we will rejoin you shortly. In the meantime, back here at our NJN studios, I am being told that Christie Whitman has just arrived on the scene at the War Memorial. She is, I am told,
we're looking at her at the State House,
getting into the car. Little misinformation there. To begin the ride, traditionally that has been a walk down State Street from the State House to the War Memorial Building. This entourage will proceed by car today due to the weather to go down State Street, then along the Barrack Street, proceeding then to the War Memorial. So she should be arriving very shortly. That is just a short trek. But Howard Green, New Jersey Historical Commission, we were talking about press secretaries early on. Certainly New Jersey's first governors did not have that luxury, but our very first governor, as we again take a look at Christie Whitman driving along that short trek a couple of blocks down State Street. She will turn shortly, there it is, down Barrack Street to go by way of New Jersey's, the old barracks.
They're all obeying the law. Have you noticed that? They all have the turn signal.
Well, the turn signal was on. It didn't quite ahead of time. Here we go. Of course, the state police escort as she follows down, now about to make that turn And there we see the War Memorial Building. Mrs. Whitman, by the way, will not go in the front entrance of the War Memorial Building. She will go in the rear entrance to make her way then onto the stage. And I would think within the next 5 to 10 minutes we will see her appear on the stage. But to get back to you, and New Jersey's first governors did not arrive with such fanfare. Philip de Carteret, as he came ashore in Port Elizabeth back in the 1600s, arrived by boat.
It was his only option. Not only did the first governors not have press secretaries, there was no press in New Jersey until the first newspaper doesn't get established until after the Revolution. New Jersey was part of New York. New Jersey shared a governor with New York until 1738, when Lewis Morris was given the governorship of New Jersey, in fact, as a consolation prize. He was trying to get the governor of New York deposed, and instead of succeeding at that, the Crown made him the governor of New Jersey.
He immediately, though, set out to have problems with the legislature, from what I understand. He wanted more money printed, and they said no way.
Everybody had problems with the
That's historic.
Did he offer a tax cut at the time, or to get us out of that?
A retroactive one.
Well, he wasn't. The taxation came from England, not from the governor. The course of the American Revolution might have been somewhat different, where the governors, the taxation agents.
But the governorship's really been different since, what, 47 or so, hasn't it?
It's a total sea change. We've had 3 constitutions. We have a colonial period to talk about. There were a bunch of constitutional amendments in the late 19th century. You can argue there are 4 or 5 periods in gubernatorial history, but the break in 47 is so great that if you're looking for threads of continuity, it's almost like there aren't any. Before 1947, the governor served a 3-year term and couldn't succeed himself. That had been true.
In this case, now herself.
Him or herself. But before 1920, women didn't. Not only could they not have been governor, they didn't vote in New Jersey, except for a period in the very early 18th century, which I could talk about some other time.
Thank you, Howard. I want to talk about the Great Seal, too, coming up. That's a little part of the ceremony that's coming up in the next hour when we can. Larry Stupnagle is standing by now on the balcony of the War Memorial. He has with him Jenny Littell, who is chairman of the state GOP committee. Larry?
That's right, Steve. We're joined now by the state GOP chairman, Jenny Littell. She's the second woman to be a state GOP chairman. But Jenny, how are you feeling today being here for the inaugural of New Jersey's first woman governor?
Well, obviously very excited because Christie has worked extremely hard, as have all Republicans, to elect her, and also independents and Democrats, obviously. So it's a very rewarding day and a very exciting day for everybody who was involved.
What do you think we're going to see in terms of her leadership style? We've heard over and over that if you elect women, you're going to see a difference in their style. What do you think will be the difference in her style?
Well, I think already you can see the way she reaches out to people and her concerns, and she isn't shy about expressing what she wants to see New Jersey become and what her vision is. And so I watch Christie around people, and she never gives anybody the short shift. She just listens, and so it's sort of the nurturing thing that a woman brings to any kind of a job that they do. It's more of an explanation of the process, and so I would have to say her patience in listening to everybody. Not that she doesn't have her mind clearly defined as to where she wants to go, but you never get the feeling that she wants to just push something on you. She will listen, and I think that's going to be one of her big assets.
Do you think she feels any additional pressure because she is New Jersey's first woman governor?
I don't really think so. I think that the press particularly has accepted Christie for what she brings to the table, and I think as you look back at this last campaign, they didn't focus so much on her agenda, but rather on her vision. And so I don't think that she has ever expressed, at least in front of me, any kind of pressure because she's female.
Now, your husband is the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, right. Senator Bob Littell. He's going to have to be one of the guys who's going to help her carry through with her tax cut pledges. any hints as to, can you tell us at all what's been going on? Has he been spending some extra time looking for some extra holes in the budget, if you will?
He's always looking for ways to cut spending, and I think his relationship with Christie is very solid, and he knows of her concerns. He has pledged to help get the members to put forward her tax cut, and I think that all of us are going to share in this. It's not going to be a burden on any one segment of our population, and she's really serious about this, and so are the legislators.
I'm going to ask you, what's your hope for her at the end of her first term here?
Well, I hope obviously that the initiatives that drove her to this spot in her life will be fulfilled. Obviously, you never get everything done that you want to do, but she has a very strong sense of belonging to New Jersey. She's lived here all her life, and so she's committed to the state. And I just hope that when she looks back on her first term and starts the run for the second term, that she's satisfied that she's done the best that anybody could do, and she certainly is very optimistic about that pledge that she's made to the people.
All right, Virginia Jenny Littell, State GOP Chairman, thanks for joining us. You can hear the New Jersey Symphony playing in the background. We're getting more and more people as you look down. This inaugural event is going to be going on time. The crowd is filing in now. The hall is quickly filling up, and even behind the scenes, there's cameras. There we go backstage right there. There's the new Attorney General designee, and folks are getting ready for this swearing-in for New Jersey's 50th Governor, Christine Whitman. I'm Larry Stupnagel. Let's go back to the studio.
Thank you, Larry. And as we move off of Debbie Poritz there, note the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra is there. 4 years ago, Jim Florio's son, Christopher, created a work he called Family that was performed by the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. And there, of course, Jim Corder, who former congressman and with the Defense-Based Closure and Realignment Commission. There you have Garibachuk Haitayan, the speaker and potential U.S. Senate candidate, of course. And as I was saying, Family was played by that. It was a somewhat personal moment for Governor Florio. And most people who have looked at that speech that he gave that day say that was probably his most relaxed moment and most genuine moment. Today, however, we are going to probably see a bit different type of ceremony. The structure is pretty much dictated by tradition, but in terms of whether or not there'll be personal touches, if they are, they're going to have to come from the new governor herself. We are told by Michael Francis, who is chairman of the inaugural committee, that there are not going to be any musical selections or any other kinds of personal touches that have been created by members of the Whitman family. It will be a traditional ceremony left up to those who are skilled in looking back over the years at how things go. And we are also told that the governor-elect has arrived in the past couple of minutes. Of course, we knew that she left. It wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to get there, but she is inside the War Memorial Building in Trenton, and we are just a little over 15 minutes away from her swearing in to be the 50th governor of the state of New Jersey.
You mentioned mementos, Steve, and I have been told that when the Chief Justice administers the oath today, it will be a family Bible
more than 100 years old.
That will be used in that ceremony today. Passed on to Mrs. Whitman from her mother and father, Webster and Eleanor Todd. And we were talking a little earlier about the tone that Mrs. Whitman will set in her administration, but she has indicated that in the first 100 days, she is not looking for a momentous first 3 months. But certainly you'd have to temper that a little bit with the task ahead of her with her tax reform plan that she plans on going forward with.
I think you might say she might not be looking for a momentous 100 days, but it will find her because of the way the budget is structured and the needs that have to be met, and also her own things that she wants to do that are going to be outlined in this speech, including the immediacy of the tax cut. There have been some speculation that it might be delayed, postponed a little bit, or put in stages, but it appears from the speech today that she'll go right at it.
When you look at the pomp and circumstance surrounding this and the tradition, we had to cancel the walk today. The state of New Jersey said, and rightly so, everyone would say, it's too dangerous out there, the parade's canceled, you're not going to walk, we'll drive you. But when you look at that, nonetheless, there have been some variations on a theme in the past, Jim.
Well, one thing that comes to mind for me is Brendan Byrne in 1977 taking that walk from the State House to the Annex. It just wasn't a very big historic walk. We use the term historic walk. It was just a case of where, I think we have a clip on this, a photograph taken of that walk some years ago, and it was Governor Byrne walking along West State Street, and the crowd was so small they asked the reporters to join in the ranks and form.
On the other hand, when Jim Florio took that walk 4 years ago, it was, there is Brendan Byrne now waving,
there he is,
looking like a crowded
Well, see that wave there? He was...
and it's shot very tightly.
It's shot very tightly. In fact, that fellow to the upper left with that trench coat and the beard is me in that crowd there. I'm dead serious. And what he's doing, it looks like he's waving to the crowd, and the statement in the newspaper said waving to the crowd. But what actually happened was one of his aides said, "Wave to the crowd, Governor." And the governor turned and said, "There is no crowd." And then the cameraman on this side here said, "Well, at least wave to us." And then he went, "Oh, hey, hello, everybody."
I spoke to Governor Byrne yesterday, trying to just get his recollection of his experiences and all. And he said, and as evidenced by that photograph there, that he was the first governor not to wear formal attire. That governors previously had worn a morning suit and a top hat, which would raise the interesting question, Kent, if Governor-elect Whitman, if that tradition still was in place, would she be wearing a top hat today?
What would she be wearing? There's a great story about Dick Hughes losing that top hat on the morning of his second inauguration and asking all of the children in the house to quickly look around and find out who sat on it. But we have to take a break here in our NJN studios and join Michael Aaron standing by outside of the War Memorial Building, and he is joined by Trenton Mayor Doug Palmer. Michael?
Ken, thanks very much. Doug Palmer is one of the hosts, in a way, for today. He's the host of this city, at any rate. How are the roads here, Mayor, and how are people doing getting here?
Well, the people are doing very well. The roads are pretty good. We had our crews out, and of course the state crews are working with our crews as well as the county crews into early this morning and late last night. So the roads are doing good. People are maneuvering pretty well here for this great day.
Christie Whitman is a Republican coming into the State House here. You've had a Democrat in the governor's chair since you've been mayor. How is it going to change things for the Democratic mayor of the capital city to have a Republican in the governor's chair?
Well, I hope there won't be a change at all, because as a Democrat mayor, we're a nonpartisan form of government, and I've been very focused on keeping that relationship. No matter who's in office, no matter if they're Democrats or Republicans, the capital city still should be treated like the capital, and we certainly are looking for opportunities as a capital city. So I believe that we will have a very positive relationship, and I look forward to the year beginning so that we can tackle the problems that New Jersey and cities face.
Have you met with her yet?
Just informally, not formally. I'm hopeful that we will have our urban summit, which we called for, and that she'll sit down so that we can go over our agenda on getting people back to work in the city of Trenton, reducing high property taxes, and helping in terms of crime and education. So I'm very confident that we will bring that meeting together.
All right, Doug Palmer, hope everything goes well here today.
Too. I didn't want to be the story in the paper tomorrow with the roads being bad, so it looks like all the news will be about Christie Whitman and this event, not the roads, because the roads are good.
Okay, Mayor Doug Palmer of Trenton, who's on his way inside. The ceremony should start soon. We're going to go inside pretty soon. Meanwhile, back to you in the studio.
Well, we can attest to that. The roads are very good here in the city of Trenton. That's where they seem to get good as we came south this morning on our trek here to the studio. We'll talk about treks. Governor Florio is about to take his last ride as the governor of the state of New Jersey, and I understand we have some video of the governor coming down the State House steps this morning, accompanied by Mrs. Florio, Lucinda Florio, who played a very active role while Governor Florio was the chief executive of this state. They are now getting into the car to do as we saw the Whitman family do a short time ago. Instead of walking down State Street to go to the War Memorial this morning, they will do the ceremonial ride this morning to join Mrs. Whitman and her family and all the other dignitaries on the stage of the War Memorial Building, where Mrs. Whitman will be sworn in as the 50th governor in New Jersey shortly after 12 noon. Well, Larry Stupnagel is there at the War Memorial, And he is standing by, I understand, with former gubernatorial candidate, former New Jersey Congressman Jim Quarter. Larry?
That's right, Ken. I am being joined here by Congressman Jim Quarter, who ran 4 years ago unsuccessfully against Jim Florio. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts today?
Well, actually, I'm very happy. I really am. I suppose in one sense, I'm happy that Christine Whitman was successful. She's a personal friend of mine. I think she'll be a great governor. And maybe I'm also glad in that I don't have to be governor because I know how tough it is. And there's mixed emotions, obviously. I went through a tough year 4 years ago, as you know. But, all is well that ends well. I'm happy in what I'm doing. I think, performed a good service as chairman of the Defense-Based Closing Commission. And I think Christie is going to be one of the fine governors of the state of New Jersey.
Well, you're someone and in that position in the Base Closure Commission who is down in Washington. You see by your being here today and your associations and friends down in Washington, you're still active in Republican circles down there, even though the job you have is nonpartisan. But what was the message that her election had going to down to Washington?
Well, I think the major message was not business as usual, number one. That it was time for a change, that although the economy was getting better, there was a sense in New Jersey that the governor was not the cause of that gradual economic growth and improvement. Secondly, I think it was a tax message. I think the people of New Jersey recognize that we cannot continue to pile on when it comes to increased tax burdens, whether it be property taxes, income taxes, corporate taxes, sales taxes. And Christie Whitman stands for the moderation of that increase and, in fact, a rollback, as we know, of some of the income tax. And Jim Florio, bless his heart, friend of mine for many, many years, I think purposely misled the voters 4 years ago when he said he did not see the need for increased revenues and increased taxes. All the while he was planning the largest tax increase in the history of the state of New Jersey. And he wasn't frank and totally candid to the voters, and I think that hurt him tremendously.
What do you think is the message now for the upcoming congressional elections? The Senate seats are up, all of the congressional races are up this year. Does her election bode well for the Republican candidates?
Well, I don't necessarily think it bodes well for any incumbent. I think basically what it means is that New Jerseyans are going to examine individuals' records, and that they're not starstruck, they're not paralyzed by an incumbent, by the power of the incumbency. It's unusual, as you know, to, in essence, kick out a sitting governor. It's very unusual to find a sitting member of the Senate to lose. But I think we may find a sitting senator lose, as we found a sitting governor losing in the state of New Jersey. New Jerseyans are not going to vote for someone simply because they were there. They're going to vote for them because of their performance and their record.
All right, Congressman Jim Quarter, former congressman, thank you for joining us here, and good luck to you back down in Washington. Let's go back to the studio.
Thank you, Larry. And we're just minutes away from the swearing in of the 50th governor of the state of New Jersey. And as we said, one of the major historical aspects of this is the fact that Christie Whitman is the first woman to hold that post. We'll be talking about that more when we return as NJN's live coverage continues of Inaugural 94.
William Livingston took the reins of governorship during the Revolution. This patriot graduated Yale at 18, was a member of both the Continental and Constitutional Congress, a brigadier general, and a father of 13, one for each colony. He held the office through War and Peace and died in office in his 14th term. Historians say that Livingston's ability to realize the power of his office has rarely been matched. William Livingston governed from 1776 to 1790.